Ever get the feeling that, like, you're paying way too much for just everything? I mean, sure, inflation is a thing.
Yeah.
But what if there's something else going on?
Right.
Something deeper.
Yeah.
Today we're going deep on how markets,
Okay.
while generally awesome, can sometimes totally fail us.
Right.
And how this plays out in something you encounter every day.
Okay.
Oligopolies.
Yeah. You're onto something there.
Yeah.
Markets are powerful, but imperfect
Okay.
when they don't allocate resources efficiently,
Right.
leading to outcomes that aren't the best for society. Economists call that market failure.
Okay.
One way this happens is when a handful of companies grab too much power.
Okay.
That's your oligopoly.
Okay. Let's unpack this.
Sure.
We've got a stack of research,
Okay.
presentations, real-world cases, the whole shebang.
All right.
But first,
Yeah.
what exactly is an oligopoly? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel.
It's not as futuristic as it sounds.
Okay.
An oligopoly is simply a market dominated by a small number of firms, each holding a big chunk of the market share.
Okay.
Think back to 2005.
Okay.
Apple had a staggering 40% of the personal digital music player market.
Wow.
With the iPod.
Oh, yeah.
Classic oligopoly.
Oh, the iPod.
Yeah.
Back when we all thought those white earbuds were the peak of fashion.
Right.
But okay.
Yeah.
I see how that's an oligopoly. Is this just an old tech thing?
Yeah.
Or are there more modern examples?
Oligopolies are everywhere.
Really?
Think about the airlines you fly.
Okay.
Basically a two-way street with Airbus and Boeing.
All right.
Or how about those razors you buy? Always the same few brands, right?
Hold on, razors.
Yeah.
They're like a million different razor brands.
Huh.
How is that an oligopoly?
It's all about the barriers to entry.
Okay.
How hard it is for new companies to muscle their way in.
Right.
Existing companies have a huge advantage. One of our sources mentioned this company, Procter & Gamble,
Okay.
that owns Gillette.
Right.
They've got massive factories, tons of patents, and they can crank out razors for pennies.
Wow.
A new razor company can't compete with that,
Right.
even if their product is better.
So economies of scale.
Yes.
The bigger you are, the cheaper you can produce.
Exactly.
Making it impossible for the little guy to get a foothold.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then there are mergers.
Oh, right.
Our sources talk about this mega merger between Xstrata and Glencore,
Okay.
two mining giants joining forces.
Wow.
This kind of consolidation just strengthens the grip of the existing players.
Okay, so we see how these oligopolies form.
Right.
They're like the VIP section of the market. But why should we, the consumers, care?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
How does this impact what we buy and how much we pay for it?
Exactly.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oligopolies can lead to higher prices and less choice for you. Imagine a world with only 3 restaurants. They can pretty much charge whatever they want, and you're stuck with their limited menu.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like a fun dinner night.
Yeah.
But is there any proof that this actually happens?
Well,
I mean, companies always want to make money, right?
they do.
Yeah.
But in oligopolies, they have more power to actually do it. One source had this fascinating example about the U.S. beer industry.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, there were tons of small breweries.
Right.
Then came a wave of mergers.
Okay.
And now, a few giant companies control most of the market.
Oh, wow.
Guess what happened to beer prices?
God.
They went up way faster than inflation.
Okay, that's convincing.
Yeah.
So more expensive beer. Anything else?
Less choice, too.
Oh, no. Come on.
Before those mergers, you had a smorgasbord of beers to choose from.
Right.
Now it's like
Yeah.
IPA or lager.
Uh-oh.
Take it or leave it.
Wow. That's a bummer for beer lovers.
Yeah.
And for those of us who, like to shop around for the best deal.
Right.
But wait, there's something else in our sources.
Okay.
About how an oligopoly can sometimes act like a monopoly. Isn't that even worse?
You're catching on.
Yeah.
The incentive to collude and maximize those profits is strong.
Okay.
Think about the banana market.
Okay.
You've got Chiquita Dole, a couple of others. They control a huge portion of global banana trade.
Wow.
If they decide to bump up prices together,
Yeah.
who's going to stop them?
Not me, that's for sure.
Right.
I'm no match for Big Banana.
But If these companies are playing their own game,
Yeah.
how do we even begin to predict what they'll do next?
Right.
Our sources mention something called game theory.
Okay.
Is that the answer?
I don't know, is it?
Game theory is a way to peek into the minds of these oligopoly players.
Okay.
It's all about anticipating your rival's moves, like a game of chess, but with billion-dollar companies instead of pawns.
Oh, wow.
So each company has to constantly think,
Yeah.
what will my competitor do if I lower my prices?
Exactly.
They're trying to predict each other's strategies to find the best outcome for themselves.
Okay.
That's where the Nash equilibrium comes in.
Right.
Each company makes the best choice it can, given what its rivals are doing.
I see.
Ever notice how gas stations almost never have half-off sales?
Now that you mention it,
Yeah.
that is weird.
Right.
What's game theory got to do with that?
If one gas station slashes their prices,
Yeah.
everyone else will follow suit,
Oh.
and they all end up losing money.
Oh, I see.
So they stay stuck in this weird dance, keeping prices relatively stable, even if it means we don't get those sweet, sweet gas discounts.
Okay. That's both fascinating and infuriating.
Yeah.
So we've got these oligopolies
Mm-hmm.
potentially acting like monopolies,
Right.
making decisions based on this game theory thing.
Yeah.
What can we do about it? Does anyone even try to rein them in?
Good question.
Yeah.
That's where we get into the thorny world of government intervention.
Cool.
Should government step in to regulate these markets?
Mm-hmm.
If so, how?
Right.
There's a whole spectrum of opinions on this,
I bet.
and we'll dive into some of them in the next part of our deep dive.
Ooh, cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Listeners, stay tuned for part 2,
Right.
where we explore whether governments are the heroes or villains in this oligopoly saga.
Definitely a lot to unpack there.
All right, back for round 2 of our oligopoly deep dive.
Round 2.
Last time we uncovered how these market giants can squeeze us consumers with higher prices and fewer choices.
Right.
Now we're getting into the really juicy stuff.
Okay.
The role of government.
Right.
Are they the knights in shining armor, coming to rescue us from the clutches of big business?
Right.
Or are they just making things worse?
Yeah. The age-old debate. The invisible hand of the market versus the very visible hand of government.
Right.
It's not a simple answer.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about market failure?
Yeah.
Well, oligopolies are considered a prime example of that.
Right, because they mess with the whole supply and demand magic trick.
Exactly.
But before we get into the solutions,
Sure.
let's break down exactly why oligopolies are seen as so problematic.
In a perfectly competitive market,
Okay.
that's Econ 101 ideal,
Right.
resources flow to where they're most valued.
Mm-hmm.
You get the goods and services people want most
Okay.
at prices that reflect their true cost.
Got it.
But oligopolies throw a wrench in that system.
So instead of the market deciding,
Yeah.
it's a few powerful companies calling the shots.
Exactly.
Wow.
They might limit production to keep prices high
Oh, geez.
or engage in practices that stifle competition. It's like they're rigging the game in their favor.
And that's where the government steps in,
Right.
like a referee to try and level the playing field.
Sometimes, yes. Okay.
But it's not always that clear cut.
Right.
Let's take minimum wage laws,
Okay.
a classic example of government intervention.
Minimum wage.
Yeah.
How does that tie into oligopolies?
Well, it's not directly related,
Okay.
but it illustrates the complexities of government intervention.
Okay.
Proponents argue minimum wage protects vulnerable workers,
Right.
ensures a living wage,
Mm-hmm.
and even boosts the economy.
I see.
Opponents worry about potential job losses,
Uh-oh.
higher prices for consumers,
Yeah.
and businesses struggling to stay afloat.
So it's not just about good guys and bad guys.
Right.
There are always trade-offs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And minimum wage is just one example.
Okay.
Governments use a whole arsenal of tools
Really?
to try and address market failures.
Like what?
Think about antitrust laws.
Okay.
Those aim to prevent monopolies and oligopolies from forming in the first place.
That makes sense.
Remember that beer example we talked about?
The U.S. actually used antitrust laws to break up some of those mega breweries.
So busting up the big guys to make room for the little guys. I like it.
Yeah.
Are there other ways to promote competition besides just playing Trust Buster?
Absolutely.
Right.
One approach is fostering innovation.
Okay.
Imagine a small startup developing a revolutionary new razor that blows Gillette out of the water.
Wow.
Suddenly, that oligopoly doesn't seem so impenetrable.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right.
Innovation can shake things up and give consumers more choices.
Exactly.
But what about those industries that are already dominated by a few giants?
Wow.
Are we stuck with them forever?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
There are other approaches, too.
Like what?
Think about price controls.
Okay.
Some governments set maximum prices on essential goods, like medications or housing,
Right.
to prevent oligopolies from jacking up prices.
That sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
But doesn't that mess with supply and demand? Like, if the price is artificially low, won't companies just produce less?
That's the risk.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balancing act.
I see.
Another approach is buffer stock schemes.
Buffer stock schemes?
Yeah.
What's that?
This is where governments buy up surplus goods when prices are low and release them when prices are high, trying to smooth out those market fluctuations.
So that, like, the government is a giant pantry?
Right.
Stockpiling stuff to keep prices stable?
Exactly.
Wow.
But again, it's not a perfect solution.
Okay.
These schemes can be expensive.
Right?
And they might not always be effective.
Oh, no.
Sometimes they can even backfire.
Really?
Leading to unintended consequences.
So we've got antitrust laws.
Yeah.
Promoting innovation. Price controls.
Right.
Buffer stocks.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of trial and error.
It is.
With no guaranteed winners.
Yeah.
Is there a way to tell which approach works best?
That's the million-dollar question.
I bet.
For economists and policymakers, the best approach depends on the specific market, the severity of the market failure,
right,
and the potential consequences of each intervention.
Okay.
It's about weighing the costs and benefits.
Right.
And recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
All right, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
No magic bullets.
Right.
Just a bunch of different tools in the toolbox.
Exactly.
But wait, before we move on.
Yeah.
There's something in our sources about common pool resources.
Okay.
How does that fit into all of this?
Common pool resources are like those communal snacks in the office break room.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has access.
Right.
But if people take too much, there's nothing left for anyone else.
Right.
Think fisheries or forests.
Okay.
Everyone can fish or chop down trees. But if they do it unsustainably, the resource collapses.
Oh, no.
And everyone loses out.
Right. The classic tragedy of the commons.
Exactly.
But how does this relate to oligopolies?
Well, oligopolies can sometimes form in industries that exploit these common pool resources.
I see.
Take the example of commercial fishing.
Right.
If a few large companies control most of the fishing fleet, they have a huge incentive to catch as much fish as possible.
Oh, wow.
Even if it means depleting the fish population in the long run.
So they're basically prioritizing their own short-term profits.
Yeah.
Over the long-term sustainability of the resource.
Right.
And ultimately, everyone suffers.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a classic case of market failure, where the pursuit of individual gain leads to a collective loss.
Right.
And this highlights the importance of government intervention.
Okay.
Things like fishing quotas or protected areas to ensure that these resources are managed sustainably.
Okay, that's a sobering example of how market forces and environmental concerns can clash.
Yeah.
But it also shows how government intervention, when done right, can help protect those shared resources for future generations.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about finding that balance between individual incentives and collective well-being.
Right.
And speaking of things that benefit society as a whole, our sources also touch on the fascinating concept of merit goods.
Merit goods?
Yeah.
Intrigued. Tell me more.
All right.
What makes these goods so special?
Well, that's where we'll pick up in part 3 of our deep dive.
Ooh, another cliffhanger.
We'll explore what merit goods are.
Okay.
Why the market might underprovide them.
Right.
And how governments step in to ensure everyone has access to these essential goods and services.
All right, listeners, join us for the final chapter of our oligopoly saga, where we unravel the mysteries of these so-called merit goods. We're back, folks, and ready to tackle the final frontier of our oligopoly odyssey.
The final frontier.
The enigmatic world of merit goods.
Right.
What are they, and why should we care?
Merit goods are those things in life that are just plain good for us, both as individuals and as a society. But here's the catch. The market, left to its own devices,
might not give us enough of them.
So they're like the veggies of the economic world.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
We know they're good for us,
right,
but we'd rather reach for the chips.
Exactly like that gym membership I keep meaning to use but never do.
Yeah.
I know it's good for me in the long run, but that comfy couch is just so tempting right now.
Exactly.
So merit goods, What are they?
Think about education.
Okay.
Everyone benefits from a well-educated population.
Right.
We get a more skilled workforce,
Yeah.
leading to higher productivity and economic growth.
Right.
Not to mention all the personal benefits to individuals.
Right. I remember seeing a chart in our research that showed a direct link between education levels and a country's GDP.
Exactly.
More education equals more money. It's a no-brainer.
Except it's not always that simple.
How so?
Individuals might not fully grasp those long-term benefits when deciding whether to invest in education.
Right.
They might focus on the immediate costs, like tuition fees, and underestimate the future payoff.
So it's like saying, oh, I'll start eating healthy next week.
Yeah, exactly.
And then next week never comes.
And that's why governments often step in with things like public schools, subsidized tuition or scholarships.
Right.
They're trying to nudge us in the right direction.
I see.
Recognizing that a well-educated society is a win for everyone.
Okay, education check.
Yeah.
What are some other examples of these merit goods?
Healthcare is a big one.
Okay.
Access to quality healthcare makes us healthier, more productive, and less likely to drain resources later on.
Right.
Then there's clean water and sanitation.
Okay.
Essential for public health in a functioning society.
So it's not just about making us smarter.
Right.
It's about making us healthier and, well, not spreading germs everywhere.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do governments decide which goods deserve this special merit status? It seems like a slippery slope.
It is tricky.
Yeah.
And there's always debate about where to draw the line.
But the key idea is that these goods have positive spillover effects.
Okay.
They benefit not just the individual who consumes them, but society as a whole.
Right. Like, my education doesn't just benefit me.
Exactly.
It also makes me a more informed citizen.
Yes.
A better employee, and maybe even a more interesting dinner party guest.
Precisely. And that's the rationale for government intervention.
Okay.
To ensure that we don't miss out on those wider benefits.
Right.
Just because the market might not deliver them on its own.
Okay. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Good.
But wait, before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Didn't our sources mention something called public goods?
Ah, good catch.
How are those different from merit goods?
Public goods, like merit goods, are often underprovided by the market, but they have a couple of unique features.
Right.
First, they're non-excludable.
Not excludable.
You can't prevent people from using them even if they haven't paid.
Oh, I see.
Think of a lighthouse.
Okay.
Everyone benefits from its light, whether they chipped in for its upkeep or not.
Okay, and second?
They're non-rivalrous.
Non-rivalrous.
Meaning one person's use doesn't diminish another person's ability to use them.
Okay.
My enjoyment of a public park doesn't stop you from enjoying it too.
Ah, so they're like the ultimate sharing is carrying goods.
Exactly.
I like it.
And because of these characteristics,
Yeah.
it's really hard for private companies to profit from providing public goods.
Right.
Why bother building a lighthouse if you can't charge ships for using its light?
Right, exactly.
That's why governments often step in to provide these goods.
Okay.
Through taxation.
So public goods are like the free snacks at a conference. Everyone can grab a handful and no one's keeping track.
Right.
Merit goods, on the other hand, are more like those fancy hors d'oeuvres. They're still good for you, but someone has to pay for them.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And it highlights the important role governments play in filling those gaps left by the market, whether it's ensuring access to education and healthcare, protecting common pool resources, or providing those essential public goods.
Right.
It's all about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Wow. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
It has been a journey.
We started with these seemingly obscure oligopolies.
Right?
And we ended up exploring the very foundations of a well-functioning society.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
Understanding how markets work, both when they succeed and when they fail, is essential for making informed decisions as consumers and citizens.
Well said. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this journey through the fascinating and sometimes frustrating world of economics.
It can be.
Remember, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And the more we understand these complex issues, the better equipped we are to navigate the market forces that shape our lives.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.